Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, for all of her virtues, there are flaws. One of which, apparently, is that she has no idea what concentration camps are. Welcome to the Soapbox. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the fire Latina from New York, has done amazing things in regards to getting, I guess you can say, attention to issues within the context of democratic socialism, increases of taxes on the top wage earners, health, Medicare for all, many of the priorities that are put forth, expansion of Social Security, global Green New Deal, et cetera, et cetera. She has great virtues. However, this bothered me. This bugged me. And maybe it bugged me because I've been binging books on World War I and World War II recently. Like the book that I'm on now is The Last 100 Days of the War in World War II. But the ones before that, Stalingrad, the Section 1, 2, 3, and 4, the other one on Berlin, the other one on Spanish Civil War, dealing with Napoleon and how that stuff kind of transpired. I can't let this pass. This comment bugged me. I'm going to let you comment. And as bad as I think what Donald Trump is doing at the border, and I myself have called it a concentration camp. If it is, I am magnificently off in saying that. This is so way off base. This is so way off base. I'm going to let her say it. She goes into this explanation that what's taking place at the border is akin to concentration camps. That the U.S. personnel at the border essentially are literally running concentration camps. And I thought to myself, either she's lying or she doesn't know what concentration camps were. And I suspect it's the latter. I've seen people defend her on this, and I think the defense on this is paltry at best. Saying, oh, you guys don't know how language works. If that's true, then you should let Donald Trump do his lies and stop complaining about the way Donald Trump talks. Because for the most part, this is akin to that language, that hyperbolic language. Hyperbole in a way, though, that ignores reality. As bad as I think what's taking place at the border, they're not being starved to death. They're not working 10, 12 hours a day. They're not being shot in the face. They don't have one member of a cart stealing the bread from a dead body as that body lay there all night. I mean, come on. Let's be honest. You can describe things in horrible ways. And I'm thinking to myself of the guy in Denmark who's chiding me for the way I was describing the war in Iraq and Bush. But this seems perversely hyperbolic. Let's hear. Don't take my word for it. Let's let her make a point.
The United States is running concentration camps on our southern border. And that is exactly what they are.
That is not what they are. That is not what they are. Those people are not being starved to death. As bad as I think it is, I don't like ripping babies from their mamas. I don't like that at all. And then she goes further and says, never again. So for those people who say, well, wait a minute, she's talking about concentration camps like was taking place when the Japanese were interned. She uses the term never again, getting across the Holocaust. How are you defending her on this? This is massively overblown. What Donald Trump is doing at that border is horrendous. I didn't like it when Obama kicked 3 million people out of the country. I don't like what Trump is doing in regards to ripping babies from their mamas or putting these people in pens. I don't like that at all. And I've been against it from day one. What he's been doing with getting rid of DACA, I'm against him on day one. So I don't necessarily have this position of, oh God, this guy is none of that. I'm hitting directly at her language. They're not concentration camps. Can't let it pass. I can't let it pass. They're not concentration camps. That's not exactly what they are. You're not being honest. As bad as it is, you're not being honest. Those are different things. Let's let her finish.
Concentration camps. And if that doesn't bother you, we can have, okay, whatever. I want to talk to the people that are concerned enough with humanity to say that we should not, that never again means something.
Never again does mean something. It doesn't mean the people at the U.S. border. It refers to what was taking place in World War II in regards to Nazi Germany and their extermination of Jews, putting people in pens and killing those people. They did that to Russians, they did that to Poles, they did that to Jews. For whatever reason, the Westerners weren't necessarily held to extreme standards, but they were still starved to death in those camps. She doesn't know what she's talking about. And don't defend her for not knowing what she's talking about. You can make your point without being belligerent.
And that the fact that concentration camps are now an institutionalized practice in the home of the free is extraordinarily disturbing.
Is it possible to have something that's disturbing that's not a concentration camp? Like, is it really 0 to 1,000? How about at 50, we're like, whoa, that's problematic. I guess my point is, can you not make a point that something is extraordinarily atrocious without invoking Hitler? And do you honestly believe that Donald Trump is Hitler? I guarantee you he's not. He's not. He is not 1,000 times. He's not. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Don't defend her when she doesn't know what she's talking about. It makes you look ridiculous when you're trying to make a real point.
And we need to do something about it. This week, immigrant children were moved to the same internment camps where the Japanese were held in the earlier 20th century. And this is
just so we're clear, even that's not concentration camps in the way that you're invoking the never again. It's the never again. It's like somebody made the point to me. This is, well, Jamarl, they weren't death camps. And she's not necessarily saying death camps. She said concentration camps. The problem is she invokes never again, which gets across Nazi Germany and gets across a very particular context. I'm sorry. How? They were starved and worked to death from day one. Day one. I mean, it's hard to get that across. Like, one of the cases that, a Russian starved so much so that he steals a piece of bread from a dead body. And when he wouldn't give the bread up, the officer beats him to death with a priest praying beside him in order to try to get the bread back. Or in other cases, leaving the dead bodies in the room so they can collect the rations of the dead bodies because they're so hungry. Or in other cases, cannibalism. Because again, a starving man would do whatever a starving man can do. And for people say, well, dude, that was at the end. That was not at the end. From day one, they were being starved to death. They didn't care about the food situation because there's a book called The Vampire Economy. And the vampire economy makes the point that Hitler didn't have a capitalist economy. It had to be something else because for the most part, he took controls over the economy early on. That he had these weird ideas about globalism, and as such, Germany, who needed to import things like oil and certain foods and everything else, essentially closed their borders. Now, in doing this, that created somewhat another crisis of, okay, we need living space, and we also need food, and we need gas, and we need all these other supplies. Where are we going to get these things from? When people wonder why did Hitler start invading Russia and everything else, yeah, part of it was gas, part of it was also living space, part of it was food. One of the things that they did immediately was take the food from the areas to which they were taken over. Well, food was more important from the standpoint of Germany, in which case, in the camps, it mattered less to Hitler that those people ate. If I am not mistaken, one of the sources I read, they started with a diet of like 1,300, and this was working like 10, 12 hours a day. I strongly suspect that the United States is not institutionalizing starving as bad as I think the situation is in regards to what Donald Trump is doing with the people who are coming to the border and everything else. As bad as I think that is, I do not think he's in the process of starving the people to death. Let's let her finish. You lose credibility when you do this. That's my point.
This is not even about a crisis this is not just about the immigrant communities being held in concentration camps being a crisis. This is a crisis for ourselves. This is a crisis on if America will remain America in its actual principles and values, or if we are losing to an authoritarian and fascist presidency. And so I think that is, I don't use those words lightly. I don't use those words to just throw bombs. I use that word because that is what an administration that creates concentration camps is. A presidency that creates concentration camps is fascist. And it's very difficult to say that.
Are you serious? Are you serious? Racist? Yeah. Sexist? Yeah. Fascistic tendencies? Probably, yeah. But Donald Trump is held within the context of a larger system. Yeah. This is hyperbolic rhetoric. And she's like, I don't say this to say it. She can barely even get it out because I think she realizes how insane what she's saying is. What's taking place at the border is horrible, and I've made note of that. What is taking place at the border is a travesty of justice, and I've made note of that. And I've been against it from day one. I've even backed AOC on all sorts of things that AOC have put forth because I agree with her on all sorts of things. But on this, I massively disagree. Concentration camps and invoking never again is extraordinarily hyperbolic. Even if you went with the concentration camp thing, that's somewhat hyperbolic, but invoking never again adds another layer to it that just seems to not be something that should be abided, and nor should be something that's condoned. I understand that fans of AOC would just look at this and say, this is not a big deal. I mean, she's using her language, etc., etc. Jason from Detroit, read the definition of concentration camp from aloud. Jason, the problem is she's added never again. Whatever definition you read for concentration camps, she's added that token that's very specific to Jews in World War II. What am I missing? I'm not an AOC fan, and I find this story ridiculous. Not left, actually, hurts exposed Boris. I don't know who Boris is. Boris Johnson is a Zionist. Okay, I don't know what that is, what that means one way or the other. Jamarl, talk to someone who's seen these camps or someone who's actually Hispanic and affected by this. I Nuke Wells. I don't doubt that what's taking place is horrendous. Talk to someone who's been in a concentration camp in Nazi Germany, and then talk to somebody who's been there. I would guarantee you there would be a dramatic difference in those things. Come on. People that have been put in concentration camps usually couldn't avoid it. Yeah, never will dehumanize people and put them in concentration camps, not just Jews. Well, more than just Jews were being put in concentration camps. Just so we're clear. I guess my point is she's invoked never again. She's invoked concentration camps. That's a very specific meaning and connotation. Turning around saying, ask somebody who's been in one of these things. Again, my point to you is she's making this as an allegory to World War II. In order to make your argument work, you would have to say, ask somebody who's been in a concentration camp in Nazi Germany in World War II and compare it to this particular concentration, and where these guys are going. I don't doubt that these are prisons. I don't doubt that the conditions are horrendous. I don't doubt even that Donald Trump is racist and all of these things. My issue here is that her invoking World War II and then turning around and pointing to this, there's a difference in those things. And pretending that there's not is somewhat of a problematic thing. That's outright delusional. The Moon King, Jamarl, you're off on this one. Well, I get that you think I am. I don't think I am. Were Chinese Americans in concentration camps or not? Nobody ever said never again in those terms. Your problem here is that, what do you think never again means? I think never again is specific to what was taking place in World War II and Jews in concentration camps. That's what I think. I think the conditions that she's talking about in World War II, and she's making a point, an allegory to, she's making an allusion to those things. I guess they were not in concentration camps, so there's nothing crying about. Well, see, that's where we disagree. That's where we disagree. Like, and maybe that's the disagreement here. You can make a point of saying the conditions that these guys are held in are horrible. You can even make a point of saying that they shouldn't be held in these conditions. Concentration camps comes across as different to me. Never again comes across as different to me. Just saying. I suppose we disagree on this. They were Japanese camps in World War II. Yes, they were. I know. FDR put them in concentration camps. Zalix, concentration camps versus death camps. See, I would argue that they were always death camps. I mean, you could up the ante and say at the point where they came to the final solution, fair enough. But if you talk to the people that were in them from day one, I would guarantee you that those people would say those conditions were horrendous. Being worked from day one. Did Auschwitz give Jewish kids toys or soft beds? I don't think they did. Meditate on this one. No, you meditate on this one. I'm sorry. You're trying to tell me and argue to me that our ICE agents are Nazis. And I think these guys are horrendous, but they're not Nazis. Read a book. Talk to me after you read a book on this. Read just one. How are the Japanese camps different from migrant camps today? But never again, stop. Strawman. She in this video made note to never again. Never again was very specific in regards to the Holocaust. The Japanese internment camps weren't death camps, nor were they concentration camps where these guys were worked mercilessly and barely fed. Don't use never again if you're going to use concentration camps. I'm sorry. Like, her argument falls flat the moment that she says never again. That has a very specific meaning. Stop pretending that it doesn't. Migrants, which are being detained in those camps, are the result of technicality. There are hundreds of thousands of migrants crossing the border, and the state has the duty to check who's entering. The state does have a duty to check who's entering. I think the issue here is that Donald Trump is racist. And so it adds a different level of oomph to his behavior in regards to this. If this was Obama, no one would bat an eye. Obama deported 3 million people. Nobody batted an eye. Now that Trump is doing it, everybody's flipping out. The state, because of the way Donald Trump is handling this, does have to process it. The issue becomes the way that Donald Trump has gone about this from the standpoint of policy. My point in this is that you can make your argument that this is horrendous without invoking Nazis. That's my point. Donald Trump hasn't invented this process. No, Donald Trump didn't. The origins of this process started with Obama. They just escalated under Trump. Good God, Trump is racist, bullshit again. Bob, I'm sorry. If you start your campaign saying that Mexicans are rapists and drug dealers, then I have to accept that your belief is that something about Mexicans makes them rapists and drug. I think that's a nonsense proposition. Some of them are good people. That's nonsense. All right, I'm going to end this here. I figured I was going to have disagreement because I know I have a lot of AOC fans. I am also an AOC fan, but I think she gets this wrong. I think she's trying to make a point. And even though I get her point, I think she's being massively hyperbolic in this point. For those who disagree with me, I would say read books on this. Books on this will give you a different perspective about what Nazis were, the things that Nazis were doing, and what was taking place in regards to those concentration camps. They were death camps from day one. The death camp thing escalated towards the end of the war, but those people were dying in those camps early on. It takes a while for somebody to starve to death, fair enough, so you could say, it takes a few years. But that war didn't end until 1945, and there were reports of starvations going back to 1941. Concentration camps. I'll end this here. People disagree with me. Disagree all you want. I know I'm right. As much as I like AOC, I know I'm right. I did not see this coming out. See, Rand Paul, that's funny. That's funny. That other stuff racist. I don't like racist. Funny is fun. AOC isn't stupid or ignorant. She's just playing a role. Bob, I agree with that part. See, I agree with that part. Now you're channeling TYT. I'm channeling TYT because I'm called. No, I'm not channeling TYT. When Noam Chomsky was hit with somebody who was essentially saying, you saying that Lenin was a right-wing deviation of what did she say? You're saying that Lenin was a right-wing deviation of something, and she made the point that you're channeling mainstream media when you talk about what was taking place in the Soviet Union that way. Noam Chomsky made the point, I have no problem with saying something that's true if mainstream media repeat it. Same here. I have no problem with saying something that's absolutely true. I don't care if mainstream media repeats it. I say it because it's true. Fuck mainstream media thinks. I think it's true. I'll end this here. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through PayPal or Patreon. And for those of you who disagree with me, I would say binge read stuff that was taking place in World War II regarding the concentration camps and concentration camps, not death camps. Binge read what's been taking place in the concentration camps and listen to what she was saying and explain to me how our forces are similar to Nazis. I don't see it. I don't see it in the least. As bad as they are, Nazis are Nazis. Thanks all.